So tonight's topic is 4 very important words in the teaching of the Buddha. These 4 words are birth, aging, sickness, death. Birth, aging, sickness, and death. I love that these are like important words in the Buddha's Dharma. It feels like so like radical, like these kind of like aggressively real words that we all experience: birth, aging, sickness, and death. And so this birth, aging, sickness, death, I am referencing the very first teaching the Buddha gave. The Buddha started with this like very upfront lesson of dukkha. You know, we talk about dukkha a lot here. And this is directly where he started in his expressions of explaining what dukkha is. And dukkha loosely translates to suffering or unsatisfactoriness or even pain. But what the Buddha said in this expression, he says, birth is dukkha, aging dukkha is dukkha, sickness is dukkha, death is dukkha. And he goes on to different types of dukkha in his explanation of this. But at the forefront is these like inarguable experiences that we will all face: birth, aging, sickness, and death. And so when, I guess it was a few months ago, I ordered a couple stickers to just like give out as like party favors out in the lobby. And I ordered 3 different kind of sayings that we talk about a lot here. And these different stickers, one said, "May you be at ease." The other one said, "Suffering and its end." And the other one said, "Birth, aging, sickness, and death." And it was turned into like almost this like social experiment of like, well, like which one's going to be the first to go, right? And the winner of these 3 sayings and 3 stickers, "May you be at ease." That was the first to go. I see some nods. Do y'all have "May you be at ease" stickers on your cars or whatever, water bottles? Yeah. Even Wild Heart facilitator Keith Felicity was here, and they were talking about how it's like a kind of like a personality type test. And we bonded over, we both had birth, aging, sickness, death. Like my water bottle has birth, aging, sickness, death. So I find a lot of comfort in this rather uncomfortable topic. And I think that's like pretty radical because, like, you know, it's almost like the punk rock in me. Like so much of a refuge in my life was in the punk scene. Because I grew up in, you know, middle class 80s and 90s where there's a lot of stigma around mental health, a lot of stigma around suffering, a lot of stigma around addiction, a lot of stigma just around the turmoil that's natural in people's lives. Like I was taught to not talk about these things. And so I go to punk rock where like they're like on stage talking about the realness of life. And I really appreciate that the Buddha was like, okay, my first message, let's be real. We're all going through this turmoil of this cyclical experience of birth, aging, sickness, death. Let's be real about it. And so there is like this great comfort that I found a spiritual faith that isn't fucking lying to me. That isn't promising me some fake reality. It's like, yo, let's be real. We will all be faced with all of the manifestations and expressions of dukkha and unsatisfactoriness. And what that relief I get is it's not my fault that life is so painful. It's not wrong that life is painful. It's like this for everyone. Because I know so much in my life has been like personalizing unpleasant, painful experiences as a failure. And so we step into the realness of aging. While we have our societal influences or even biological influences to resist aging, right? We worship youth in our culture. And I love this kind of radical rub up where it's like, yo, we're all aging. Let go. It's okay to age. And then the realness of sickness, right? That so much about life is avoiding sickness. And yeah, we can have influence on our bodies to maybe avoid some sicknesses here and there, but we ultimately do not control these bodies. They will become ill. From the light stuff to catching a cold to some of the terrible stuff of cancers. We will all be faced with these one day. And we can lessen our suffering over this experience by not fighting it. It's okay that we get sick. Let's get sick with an open heart. And then the terrible one, right, that is kind of like the star of the show in my experience of these 4 expressions, is the expression of death. That the inevitability of death. I was a friend of mine from my hometown. He came to town to come watch a show. Death Cab for Cutie, I guess, played at the arena or something, and he came to go see them, and we hung out and had burritos, and his band is doing a 20th anniversary of their big album, and they're doing a reunion, and we were talking, and it was just so sad. He's like, oh yeah, this person, 2 of his band members passed away. And then we were just talking about friends after friends after friends that have passed away over the years. And we were like, is this normal that we have so many friends that died? And to a certain degree, he was like, well, my dad's like, yeah, you're younger than me and you have more friends that are dead. But also at the same time, it's like, let's embrace that experience. Yes, it sucks that our friends have passed away in extreme numbers, just from, like I said, that punk rock life that was beautiful and honoring of the suffering. Sometimes it brings about a little bit more suffering, I guess, in our experience. And how there is an open-heartedness that happens when you have enough friends, because you have no choice, at least my choice, right? That so much loss has happened in my life, I had to open my heart up. And this is what I call a rude awakening. The rude awakenings of life. When we get pummeled and pummeled and pummeled by life, and we just give up and just allow life to be like that because it wakes us up. And this is in the story of the Buddha. The Buddha had a rude awakening that sparked his spiritual journey. So the Buddha was a guy named Siddhartha Gautama, and in the folklore and even in some of the historical background of the Buddha, he was raised of relative wealth, that he was really hidden away from average society. And in his story, that he left his palace walls, we'll say, and went out into the world and witnessed things he never saw before out in the city. That when he went into the average world, he saw an aging person, an old person. He never saw an old person before. And he was like, what's up with this guy that's wrinkly faced and hunched over? And then he learned, oh, that's an old person. We will all get old someday. And then he saw somebody with boils on their face and hunched over vomiting. And he's like, what's up with that guy? Gross. And then he learned, oh, that's a sick person. We will all have extreme illness at some point in our life. It's like, fuck. And then he saw one person just bloated, blue, not moving, not breathing. And his gut dropped. It was like, oh, what's up with that guy? And then that's the first time he witnessed a dead body. That visceral reaction when we see a dead body. He never experienced that. And these are the experiences that woke him up. That, it may sound cartoonish because it's this folklore that's passed down, but when in your own life have you been confronted with the reality of aging? When have you been confronted with the reality of sickness? And when have you been confronted with the reality of death? Because these are those points of desperation when we truly know these deep down, not just on an intellectual level, but an experiential level, that lead us on the path to a higher happiness, which is peace with all of these things. And so while I look at this message of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and how it relates to the Buddha's story, even how it relates to your own life, there is a wisdom that leads us to a deep insight of the Buddha's Dharma when we turn towards these experiences and understand them on a deep level. If we look at this statement, birth, aging, sickness, death, I really think it's said in this way on purpose, that we start with birth. And then from that birth, there is a process of unfolding, and then there's a death. And this is teaching us the lesson of impermanence, that all things in life are transient, all things in life are changing, and everything is passing. It's good news and bad news to a certain degree, right? Good news is the pain, the difficulty, the hard times in life, they'll go away. This too shall pass, as they say, right? And so that's a very comforting thought in my life. When I'm just having like a shitty day, it's like, well, this will pass, right? Or I have to go do some work I don't want to do. Well, at some point, I will be done with this work, right? And having that just understanding and relief that this will change, right? That even looking at like some of the expressions of the body, right? Like right now, my foot is hurting. It won't hurt forever. It will change. And so from the large to the small, notice this change. And then also, not only in the unpleasantness, but also in the pleasantness, right? Those things we love in life, those will go away. And I don't say that to be bleak. I say that to be free. Because when we know those things we love in life are going away, those experiences in life are going away, this beautiful community one day will not be here, this beautiful building will not be here, these are things I love. And I still want to know that this won't last. Why? Because it's our attachment, our grabbing on to impermanent conditions that cause suffering. And so if I can just approach life with an open hand and allow all experience to come and go, rather than attaching to impermanent conditions and hoping that it will last forever, knowing deep down it won't last forever, then we're free. And what we're free to be is, meeting life with a gracious, open heart. I think it helps me in a great deal to acknowledge the people I love won't be here forever. The experiences I love won't last. It helps me have gratitude that I go, they are here right now. And so this gift of seeing birth, aging, sickness, and death in all conditions in life is a beautiful experience. And also looking that we are not separate from this experience. We aren't individuals having a impermanent experience. We are impermanent experiences arising and passing in this very moment. That there's a freedom to let go of this self-identity that grabs onto experiences and claims it as I and mine, and I need to control this, I need to fix this. And it's this individual identity of this thought that thinks it's in charge, but it's just telling you that. Your mind is not in charge. And so let go. And when we let go, what we discover is, in this very moment, the birth of consciousness arises based off of impermanence. The only way we know and are aware of anything right now is due to its changing, impermanent nature. The eyes are seeing right now. What are the eyes seeing? The eyes are seeing waves of light bouncing off of objects. With no light and no bouncing of light and the vibrancy of light, the changing movement nature of light, we wouldn't have sight. Therefore, we wouldn't have seeing consciousness. Sounds. You wouldn't be able to hear what I'm saying if it was a permanent sound. The only way you're hearing anything right now is due to the waves of ups and downs, of changing of sound. You're hearing, even the cars on the streets, quite beautiful that you can hear whoosh, whoosh of the cars moving. But even in that whoosh of the car going by, there's little moments of ups and downs, of impermanence that's creating sound waves. Anybody works in music, you could see it on your screen, the sound waves. Without those waves, we wouldn't know sound. We wouldn't be able to hear sound. And so this is true in all of these experiences of the senses. The only thing we know is the changing nature of the senses, but also the changing nature of thought. Every thought you're thinking right now is an impulse within your brain. And as it's firing off all these impulses of these, mental visions and mental sounds, they're just changing constantly. And so even these thoughts are just changing nature of arising, passing moments of impermanence. And so we are not separate from this experience. Our awareness is reliant on the transient nature of impermanence. There is no individual besides this experience. And so I'm saying this not as a way to, intellect about the Buddhist teachings, but to relax. You are not separate from this experience of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Just notice it right now. As you breathe in, there's the birth. And there's life. And then as you breathe out, there's death. And then as you breathe in, there's birth again. And then there's life. And as you breathe out, there's death. And at some point, you're going to breathe in. And then you're going to breathe out. And then there won't be any other in-breath. That'll be it. And this is what the teachings show us. In every moment, let's remember this truth. That at some point, you're going to breathe in and breathe out and never breathe in again. So we want to keep this at the forefront of our practice. And the Buddha taught a specific method for us to keep this at the forefront of our awareness, to train our awareness to know that we are living this transient, changing, and impermanent experience. And the way he taught this is with the 5 daily remembrances, or sometimes we call it 5 daily recollections. And I like how we put this word daily, because we're asked to do this every day. And we're asked to do this quite often, not only every day, but really every moment. And so I'm going to read these off to you, and then, maybe we can practice these a little bit. And the first one of these 5 daily remembrances is, I'm of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. And it's like we can meditate on this experience of this process of aging in every moment. I look in the mirror and sometimes I'm like, where the fuck did time go? And it's like, oh yeah, I have not gone beyond aging, right? And just noticing that relationship. Whoa, the clinging to somebody I thought I was, right? I'm of the nature to age. I've not gone beyond age. And I am of the nature to grow ill. I have not gone beyond illness. And having that know-how in every moment to know illness is a part of life. And you may be, experiencing sickness right now. Oh, yeah, that is the nature of life. But you may not be sick right now. I've even heard this lesson of mindfulness of the ears when we do a body scan, and it was like, how am I mindful of the ears? And it's like, remember the last time you had an earache? I bet you were pretty aware of your ears. And notice right now, if you do not have an earache, notice what that feels like. And so when we have this sense of understanding that illness is a part of life, we also notice when the ears are healthy or the body's healthy as well, because we can have this contrast. And not as a way to cling on to a healthy body, but to know that, yeah, it's inevitable that there will be sickness in this body. And then there's the other one. The third one of this is, I'm of the nature to die. I have not escaped death. I have not gone beyond death. I'm of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. I feel like I have so much to say about this one, right? To knowing that death is a part of life. And there's like, a joke, like the Buddhist joke about, you hear about the Buddhist coroner, that he got fired from every job he got because on the toe tags of the body, it said cause of death, he wrote birth. All right? And we can just acknowledge, like that's the cause of death, is birth. And, there's even a part of me, like I said, I was hanging out with my friend and talking to him, like, oh, this person passed away. I wanted to know, like, what happened? What happened? Why? So I can avoid that. Right? But, it's a part of life, this passing of our lives, and taking time to meditate on that. In the Satipatthana, the Buddha's discourse on mindfulness, you'll get all of the teachings that you get like on the secular mindfulness apps, right? The Satipatthana has the lesson on mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind. And what these popular secular mindfulness folks and meditation apps leave out, though, is in the first foundation of mindfulness in the Satipatthana, where you get mindfulness of breath and body, the Buddha taught a lesson called Maranasati. Maranasati. And Maranasati is mindfulness of death. So just like we breathe in, we know we're breathing in, we breathe out, we know we're breathing out, we're asked to contemplate death. And in the discourse, he very specifically tells us how. And it's a little bit hard for us these days, but you may find ways of doing it. He says, go to the charnel grounds. And the charnel grounds is a place, like often in northern India, where they take dead bodies and leave the dead bodies. So culturally, especially at the time of the Buddha, they could go watch a dead body decay. And so as the Buddha said, go to the charnel grounds and watch this body in the process of decay. 1, 2 days, 3 days dead, bloated, blue, pus, and then as the process goes, watching the body lose its skin, watching the body's sinews break apart, watching the blood dry up, and then as it's going, you notice the bones, and you notice the bones scattering all around, and then you notice the bones turn to dust. And we're asked to view this process of decay while reflecting on this very body is of the same nature. And so we're supposed to be upfront with this death. And so while it may not be available to us to look at charnel grounds of bodies in decay, anytime you're presented with death, please take time to honor it as a part of your practice. Sometimes I instruct, like, you'll see on your walk, you'll see a squirrel, that's been run over. Take time to look at the squirrel and note that I'm not separate from this experience. This squirrel that's in decay, this body is of the same nature. Right? There was a possum in my yard that we have vultures in our neighborhood, which I love vultures, that were pecking at and eating at this possum. And I walk by it every day, noticing the nature of this very life. Right? That this possum, this body is much like that possum in the process of decay. And it's quite beautiful. Right now, like that, there's barely a possum left. There's a little bit of nails, and like these long, talon nails, on the ground with just a little bit of fur all over the place. And it's this body too will decay in that way. And I think that for me, that's an extremely helpful practice, because like so much of my early life, I was at odds with death, especially like my father's death. My father died when I was at a young age, and I fucking hated it. I was angry. He died from alcoholism. I was pissed at alcohol. I was mad at the alcohol industry. You know, I wish there was something I could do. I felt like there was something wrong about his death. And I like was thinking that so much so that I was killing myself in the process. Yeah, I was mad at alcohol, but I was drinking that pain away because I was so pissed. So I was drinking my anger away. And I was just, causing so much suffering. And then I entered into the Buddha's Dharma, and that's why I love this first lesson that he offered, because it was like, what a relief. Let's be real. Nobody's getting out alive. What a relief. Didn't mean anything was wrong, doesn't mean anything's bad, doesn't mean anybody's at fault. This is actually the experience we will all have. Like, fuck, I don't have to blame anybody. I can forgive myself. I can forgive my dad. I can forgive my family. I can forgive the world. What a relief. And that relief comes from looking at dead squirrels doing wild shit, right? If we want to find a wild heart, we need to do some wild shit, right? And so we continue on these 5 reflections, right? I'm of the nature to age. I've not gone beyond aging. First one. I'm of the nature to grow sick. I've not gone beyond sickness. I'm of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. And then the 4th one is, I'll be separate from everything and everyone I hold dear. Fuck. I'll be separate from everyone and everything I hold dear. And, like that everything you hold dear. I'll get to that everyone you hold dear in a second, but that everything you hold dear, right? That, I love collecting stuff. I love collecting records. I collect VHS stuff and nostalgia and stuff like that. I love it. But to a certain degree, I know it's not what makes me happy. It's my relationship to it that makes me happy. And so this happiness comes from within. As we look at all conditions in life are impermanent, if our sense of well-being is reliant on these conditions in life, that means our own sense of well-being will be impermanent as well. And so we want to know that everything in life is impermanent, and so therefore everything in life isn't fully satisfying. And that's why we look at the spiritual. We look inward to find well-being. We look inward to find happiness, knowing that the things out here don't lead to happiness. They're fun. I'm not saying that we need to give it up or say it's bad or evil or wrong. Just know it's not making you happy. It's your relationship to it that's making you happy. And so, as the things go away, doesn't mean that feeling has to go away. You can still oh yeah. Like I said, I like nostalgia. And I remember TV shows that made me feel good. Well, it wasn't the TV show that made me feel good. It's that feeling that made me feel good. So I can access that feeling anytime I need it, when I meditate on it, when I practice this enough. I don't need to have the TV show there. I don't need to have my VHS. I don't need to have my VCR going. Oh, it's that feeling that's available anytime I need it, as long as I practice this and learn to cultivate that feeling. And just like all these things go away, every one will go away. And understanding grief is a part of this. Sometimes we think we can intellectually, spiritually bypass our grief. Nah, that's part of it. Grief is a beautiful emotion. It hurts, but it's love. It's that confusing emotion that grief is love lost. If you didn't love somebody, you wouldn't feel grief. And so it's like embracing that grief as the people we love go away, because while they leave, that love you have for them can keep going in your heart. And sometimes I tell stories about friends who pass, especially friends that have been in this room that have passed, and so much I remember about them is their practices of loving kindness. And I know if I practice for them, they live in my heart. And so nothing lasts in this world but this very thing that I'm talking about. What actually keeps going? And this is the fifth remembrance. My only true possessions are my actions. And this word action literally translates to karma. Karma. The only thing we own in this world is our karma, is the momentum we put forth that keeps going in this cycle of birth, aging, sickness, death. And as birth, aging, sickness, death keeps going, what connects it all is the karma we bring forth in this momentum. And so, like I said, as my friends die, I want to remember the loving kindness they were doing in this room. As the possessions go away and break, I want to remember that feeling they gave me, because that feeling can be accessed in this very moment, and I can keep that feeling going. And this is why practices like loving kindness meditation are so important, because that's the karma we want to bring forward. Karma can be a very confusing word, and I know y'all have been hanging out enough, but I still want to say this. Karma isn't a piggy bank in the sky. It isn't this spiritual materialism of like, oh, if I give money to the center, I will be gifted a big house or a big car or a big boat. That's not what this is about. What this is about is your thoughts are actions. And if you commit to having loving kindness in your mind, that will be a habit within your mind. And I have faith that that's the habit that keeps going in this process of cyclical birth, aging, sickness, and death. Nothing else. That's the only thing that keeps going. And so if we want to have a rebirth that's full of loving kindness, we better do loving kindness right now. We better meet this moment with ease. We better meet the losses with compassion. We better meet the pleasure with gratitude, because that will dictate whether this next life is full of suffering, misery, or happiness. And so, going through these 5 daily remembrances, I would like to take maybe just a few minutes just to meditate on these before we open it up into discussion, if that's all right with you. And so, whatever way feels right to sit. We don't have to be super spiritual about our posture or anything. Just, checking in with the body a little bit. And taking the awareness inward by allowing the eyes to close. And softening the body, loosening the grip on the body, loosening the grip on life. As you feel this process of birth, aging, sickness, and death arise through mindfulness of breathing. Just feeling and knowing each in and out breath, the birth of the inhalation, the death of the exhalation, the birth of the inhalation, and the death of the exhalation. And so now, bringing your awareness to the heart, and just breathing in and out from this heart space. And touching into this wholesome karma of loving kindness, of compassion, of appreciation. And it may feel right to even put your hands on your heart, holding your heart, welcoming in a sense of touch and tenderness with yourself. And with this sense of holding, of gentleness, just breathing in and out, silently reflecting. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. And gently breathing in and out, reflecting in this heart. I am of the nature to grow ill. I have not gone beyond illness. I am of the nature to grow ill. I have not gone beyond illness. I am of the nature to grow ill. I have not gone beyond illness. Breathing in and out with a gentle open heart. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond death. And with a gentle heart, I will be separated from everything and everyone I hold dear. I will be separated from everything and everyone I hold dear. I will be separated from everything and everyone I hold dear. And with love in my heart, the only thing I own are my actions. The only thing I own are my actions. The only thing I own are my actions.
What's up, y'all? Reverend Mikey Noechel here from Wild Heart Meditation Center in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for checking us out. Do me a favor, please like and subscribe. And if you feel moved to leave a donation, you can do so at wildheartmeditationcenter.org or the Venmo link in the description. Peace and love.